What is going on, people, and welcome to my new season's Premier League table prediction for the 2023-24 season coming up. Obviously, it's always exciting to do this video because of the new teams that get promoted, and obviously ones that struggled last season that barely stayed up. You got to kind of consider how they're going to do for next season, who they've recruited. So I don't like to do these straight away, these table prediction videos, because I like to get a feel for certain signings and what clubs are doing. Now, there's still deals that can be done before the season, but I wanted to do the video. I feel like there's enough been happening with certain players moving to certain teams. So I wanted to do my table prediction for the upcoming season. I actually got no positions right for last season, but there was about 8 or 9, I believe, where I was like one spot out of what I'd predicted. So very close on a lot of them, but didn't actually get an exact match for positions in the table. But it's always fun to do, so let's get into it. At number 20, I'm going to go from bottom to top as well. So from 20 to first place, I'll be going in that order. So at 20th place, I've gone with a newly promoted team in Sheffield United. I know some of their players from the last time they were up, and I don't think they got enough depth and quality in their squad to stay up. As I said, some of them are still there from when they were previously up in the league, and I think it's just going to be too much of an ask. I don't think they've got enough depth, enough quality to stay up in this league. It's not an easy league to stay up in, and I think it's going to be far too much for them. So 20th place, Sheffield United for me. In at 19th, I've gone with Luton, and I didn't want to put them to get relegated straight away because I do think that they could possibly scrape staying up, but I think it's going to be very close even if they do stay up, because as good as they were in the playoffs and obviously gaining promotion, they haven't got the funds to bring in enough quality, in my opinion, to really challenge to stay up. So for me, it's going to rely a lot on fitness for their key players and experienced players, because they're not going to have a lot of funds and a lot of transfers coming in. So for me, I'd like to see them do it and stay up just for the story itself. I just think it's going to be too much of an ask. So 19th place, Luton Town. 18th place, I've actually gone with a team that I've given the benefit of the doubt to for the last few seasons. I still think they could stay up, but I think they struggled a bit last year. In the second half of the season, when the new manager came in, they definitely improved. But I think they haven't made a ton of signings, or any that I can think of off the top of my head, to really perform. And I think their overall squad is probably good enough to stay up, but I think it was last year and they struggled until the second half of the season. So if they have a longer stint next season of that first half performance of the season, then they're going to be in trouble. And I don't think they score enough goals either, so they're going to have to improve on that. But it's Wolverhampton Wanderers. But under Lopetegui, I wouldn't be surprised if they stay up, but something's telling me that they're going to go down. So I've gone with Wolverhampton Wanderers in 18th place. So that is the relegation zone done. Into 17th place, a team that has just lost their best player, and I think it's really going to affect them because of how quality and how important he was to them, and that is West Ham. And obviously just lost Declan Rice to Arsenal. Obviously they got 105 for him, which if they recruit right could help them, but there's not going to be many players in the world you're going to get in his position that are going to be better than Declan. So I think West Ham are going to struggle this season, but I think they'll have enough know-how and experience under Moyes and other players, the likes of Cresswell and Mikel Antonio. Them experienced players at Bowen will drag them through and get results when they need them, which is why I've got them in at 17th. In at 16th place, a team that I'm intrigued by because they've really changed and done a 180 on their philosophy that they've been known for, and that is Burnley. Obviously, all them years under Dyche of just long ball, physical football, hard to break down. Company has gone in there and started to get them to play more attractive football on the eye. They can mix it up more now. They've got more to their game, and they just play a different style of football now. So I'm intrigued to see what Burnley can do. They kind of ran away with the Championship last season. And obviously he's got Bellamy as his number 2, which is also an interest to me. And I think that they will do enough to stay up. And they could possibly even finish higher than 16th. But I've put them in 16th because they're a bit... We don't really know what we're going to get yet. And I think, again, they're not going to have a ton of money to spend and bring in new players to boost the squad and add depth. So for me, I think that they'll stay up. And I think they could finish higher than I've put them. But I've got them in 16th. In at 15th, a team that are very up and down at the moment. And even when the new manager came in, he's known to keep teams up. And he only just did it last season. Depending on who they're going to bring in, could drastically change their season, but it's going to take a lot of work, I think, still to really boost them up the table, and that is Everton. Obviously, Dyche going in there did enough to keep them up just, but even he nearly got relegated with them. I think they'll struggle a bit again this season coming, but I think that they will pick up a few more results to keep them safer than they were. So I've gone with 15th for Everton. In at 14th, I've gone with Bournemouth. An interesting team. Lowest attendance, I believe. I don't know if it's Luton now. I haven't looked into it, but one of the lowest attendances in the league. It's just over 11,000, I believe, for their stadium, which is not good enough for the Premier League. But it's what you do on the pitch. And in fairness to them, finishing 15th last year, I think surprised some people, including myself. I thought they would get relegated straight away, and they didn't. Obviously, I had all them glorious years under Eddie Howe originally, when they come up originally. I think Gary O'Neill deserves a massive pat on the back for what he's done. Yet they got rid of him, which was a shock to me, but I think that they will go slightly better again next season. And I've gone for 14th place for Bournemouth. In at number 13, I've gone with a team that finished 16th last season, and that is Nottingham Forest. Gary Cooper, fantastic job he did last season. They started off pretty poorly, and turned it round in the last month or so of the season. Owani, I don't know how you say his name, but the striker they got, the big lad up top, really hit form when it mattered at the end of the season. Gibbs White was fantastic all year for them. I think he's a very underrated player. I think Forest under Cooper, now that he knows his squad even better, with some added additions as well coming in, I think that they could improve even more. I expect Gibbs White to have another massive season as well. If they can keep him fit with some new additions and Cooper with a year's experience now behind him, I think that they're going to go again. And I've gone for a 3-place jump up in the table for them to 13th place from last season's finish in 16th for Nottingham Forest. In at number 12, I've gone with Crystal Palace. I like their squad. I really like Eze. Zaha, obviously very experienced. If he stays there, he's a leader for them, knows the club inside out. And you've got Elise as well, another young and upcoming baller. I do think they need a striker, because I don't think that Mateta is good enough. He's not going to get you 15 goals a season, and he did struggle last year. I quite like him, but he's not a goal scorer, so they definitely need a striker for me. But I think Palace know how to get it done in this league. They're experienced, and they always seem to do enough. They finished 11th last season, and I've gone 1 place lower this year, but I think if Eze has another big season again, they could even improve on last year. So for me, I've gone 12th place. We'll have to wait and see. 11th place, I've gone with Fulham. Obviously a fantastic year for them last year, finishing in the top 10 in 10th place. I think Marco Silva deserves massive recognition and respect. I don't think his team got spoken about enough last season for what they achieved with the squad he had. Finishing in the top 10. Newly promoted. I know they used to be in the Premier League a lot, but they haven't been in recent years for a long time. Come back up, and they're in the top half of the table. And I think obviously Mitrovic is a massive player for them. Pereira had a massive season, ex-Man United player. Wilson, the Welsh guy, is a very good player. Ream at the back was a solid leader up until his injury near the end of the year. I just was very impressed with them. I don't think they're getting enough respect. I think Willian was revived and brought back into his more prime years somehow. So very impressed with them last year. And I think they'll have a very similar season this year coming. I've gone with a 1 slip for them in 11th place, but still not bad. In at 10th then, it starts getting interesting. I've gone with Chelsea, simply because they're in a transition period. Obviously finished 12th last year. Terrible season for them. The worst I remember that I've seen of them most of my years I've been alive. Obviously a lot of change with the managers. We had the ownership change with Abramovich and Bowley. Too big of a squad. A lot of players have left now, but they could probably still get rid of a few more. But because they're in that transition phase, I think it's important they get a good pre-season in and some good results with that to just boost confidence. And it's going to be interesting to see what Pochettino does. A lot of people are raving about him and think he's going to do massive things. I think he will stabilise the club, but I don't think that he's going to win anything with them. He might win a Carabao maybe, potentially an FA Cup, but it's going to be tough. I can't see him winning anything in this first year. Possibly next year if they keep him and they build upon it this season on what they did last year, because it was so bad last year for a club of Chelsea's expectations and standards. I think he will stabilise, but only slightly, which is why I've only gone for a 2-place improvement for them, from 12th to 10th place for Chelsea. In at number 9, I've gone with Tottenham. Obviously, we still don't know what's happening with Kane. It's looking likely that he might go to Bayern, but it's still not done. I personally think he's going to stay at Tottenham now. I just think, even if he breaks a record as all-time Premier League scorer, if you finish with no titles in your career, personally, I wouldn't just be happy enough with being the all-time top scorer, because I think you should be looked upon about trophies you win, not just individual accolades. But everyone's different. I just think he's wasted his career staying at Tottenham as long as he has done, because they don't win anything. They're major bottlers. And for his own sake, I think he should leave, but I just feel like he won't now. So I think if he stays, obviously it helps them with the goals he brings. Son needs to have a massive season because he was terrible last season for his standards. I think Kulusevski fell off a cliff. Perisic is a bit hit and miss, considering how he used to be with his performances. Their defence is terrible. The midfield is lacking, I think, a lot. They're major bottlers. And I nearly didn't even have them in the top 10 for this, but I've put them 9th. We have to wait and see. In at number 8, I've gone with Brentford. Obviously, no Tony this season, which is going to be a massive miss. Just absolutely massive. They've got that Shard, which I did like the look of him when he came in. I think he will have a better season. I think Mbeumo will be the player to watch because it's going to be on his shoulders to carry that team more now with Tony out. And I think also Visser needs to be starting more games because he was more of an impact sub last season. Did start a few games here and there, but coming off the bench, I think he's one of the most underrated in the league, if not number 1, for coming off the bench and grabbing goals. And I think if he starts a few games with Mbeumo and Shard, I think that they could do the job out and share the responsibility of the goal scoring between them 3. But it's still going to be hard to do what Tony was doing in terms of just hold-up play and stuff. So I think Brentford will have a decent season. Obviously, they got 9th last year. And I've actually gone with a slight increase of a 1-place increase for me to 8th place this season. But it's really going to take a colossal team effort for Tony's absence to have a great season and go one better. But I think they could do it. And I think Frank's a fantastic manager. He knows how to get the most out of a squad with not tons of money. The recruitment is very good. And I think they'll have a good season again. 8th place for me for Brentford. In at number 7, I've gone with Aston Villa. I think Emery, when he came in last year, really turned the ship around and improved them and steadied it. I think they'll be solid again this year. Obviously, they finished 7th last season. And I've actually gone with them to finish 7th again. Potentially could go 6th or 5th for me. But I've gone with 7th. I think they'll match what they did last year. But with a full season like Emery didn't have last year, with a full season with him in charge, they could go better. Wouldn't hugely surprise me, but I've gone with 7th for Villa. In at number 6, I've gone with Brighton. Finished 6th again last season. I think they'll do the same this season. Their recruitment is the best in the league for me. For a team with no massive budget, I know they've got a bit of money, but the recruitment is just second to none. And I think they're the best at recruiting in the league. I really do. I think just the setup behind the scenes is magnificent at Brighton. And I think they're going to be here to stay for a while. And I think they'll have another decent season. And I've gone with the same place finish in 6th place. In at number 5 then, getting into the top 5, I've gone with Liverpool. Finished 5th last season. I think they'll do the same again. Obviously, they've got Alexis McAllister coming in could improve them a lot, but he might not hit the ground running. But he is experienced in the Premier League, being with Brighton already, so I don't think he will take long to hit the ground running. It's just more so on the other side of the pitch how Liverpool do, because defensively last season were not good, or not to the standards you come to expect of them. I don't think Van Dijk is anywhere near his best at all. I think he's majorly fell off. I like Kanate. I quite like Matip, but he's getting on now. Robertson is a leader for them. I think the major thing that's going to be interesting to watch is Trent this year, because they're on about him switching into midfield. I still think he'll play right back. He'll just drift in and someone to cover for him, probably Kanate. But for me, I wouldn't risk playing him as a right back anymore. I'd actually put him in as a midfielder and get a different right back in, because the amount of times he got caught out last year was an embarrassment. He can't get back. He's not got no recovery pace. And because he attacks so much, he always gets caught out, and he doesn't have the work rate for me either to get back, or the need or the fight or the want to do that either. So that's going to be where it's going to be won or lost for me. It's going to be interesting to see how Klopp manages it. 5th for Liverpool. Number 4, Manchester United, my team. I think Ten Hag done a massive job last season. Finished 3rd. I'm hoping we can finish 2nd, if not win the league, but I don't think we're going to get close to winning it. I'm hoping we can go better than I've predicted for 4th place. But going with my head more than my heart, I think that for me it's not a massive loss if we finish 1 place below what we did last season. Because I think similar to Chelsea, not to the level of Chelsea, but I do feel like we're in a transition period ourselves. And I don't know, it's hard to predict the top 5 for teams, and I do think we could finish higher, but for me it's more of a consistency factor with United. I think we've got the quality to finish 2nd or 3rd, like we did last season with 3rd place, but the consistency is a worry for me. And with Champions League football as well, injuries, we don't always do well with injuries and people getting back in time for big games, and the accumulation of games in short amount of spaces between games. That's what worries me. So I've gone with a 4th place finish, 1 worse than last season. But with Champions League football, I wouldn't be mad at it, because we're in that, which we wasn't last year. And we'll be competing on an extra competition at a higher level. So I wouldn't be mad at a 1 slip in a league, as long as we're building and seeing progress somewhere else in terms of a Champions League place, quarterfinals or something like that, or winning another cup. So I've gone 4th. 3rd place, Arsenal. 2nd last season. I think the pressure's going to get to them this year. I know they've just brought Rice in, which I think he will be a massive player for them, and I think he'll hit the ground running. And they've just got Timber, which I think could be a good addition for them. United were linked with him for a long time, didn't get him. Arsenal have just brought him in. But for me, last season everyone thought Tottenham won the transfer window. And look at the season they had, finishing 8th. So I don't think you can read too much into the transfer window and players that have been brought at this specific moment, because it doesn't always work out that way. But Arsenal do have more history and a better philosophy and just good feeling about them than Tottenham do, and they win more than Tottenham do. But I think the pressure of people expecting them to challenge City again this season and go one better and win the title, I think is really going to get to him. I think it got to them last season when it mattered. And I think, again, Haaland's 2nd season with City, I think is going to be too much for Arsenal. So I've gone for them to slip 1 place to 3rd. Top 2 then, in at number 2, Newcastle. I think Eddie Howe had a fantastic season last year. I think he deserves huge credit. I've always liked him, even when he was at Bournemouth. Finished 4th last season, only 4 points off United. And they're a fantastic team. The philosophy, the work rate, the pressing off the ball, the standards and expectations that are now there. The support at the home games are unbelievable from the fans. Even when they travel, they're loud. And I just like them as a team. Like, they're one team that I always like watching and want them to do well. And I think with the money they've got now, they don't just splash the money they've got. They spend it wisely, and the recruitment seems good, and they haven't really had a lot of misses so far with the players they've brought in. Trippier, if he has another massive season, is a massive player for them. Botman at the back. Actually, with additions coming in, I think Callum Wilson, if he can stay fit for most of the season, is one of the best goal scorers in the league behind Haaland. I just think that they're going to improve again, and I've gone with them to jump 2 places and finish second and really challenge. And this is with Champions League football as well. Maybe I'm overrating them a bit much and giving them a bit too much faith, but I can see the vision, and I think they're going to go again. So Newcastle United in at second for me, which obviously leaves first place again for Manchester City. I just think the quality, the depth, Pep's still there. He's different gravy. Like, he knows how to get the best out of players and motivate as a group and as individuals. He knows, he's just a genius. He really is. I think tactically he's the best ever. I don't think he's the best manager ever, because I still think that's Ferguson. But in terms of tactics, I think he's the best ever. The way that he's evolved the game and continued to evolve himself. Stones last season coming from centre-back to play as a holding midfielder, and even banging goals as well at times. Scored like a half volley with great technique like a striker in the box near the end of the season last year. Obviously they've just lost Gundogan, which I think is going to be a massive loss. But he always brings in players to replace him, like Brighton do, to be fair. They've just got more money, and the replacements always seem to come in and do just as well, if not better. It's going to be interesting to see how they do. They've obviously just got Kovacic, which I think is going under the radar. I think he's going to be a massive player for them. I think he's massively underrated, even when he was at Chelsea. I don't think people give Kovacic the respect they should. And I think that he will replace Gundogan. I don't know if he's going to score as many goals. I don't think he will. But I think he'll bring other things into the game that will suit them, that maybe Gundogan weren't doing. So for me, I just think they're unstoppable. Haaland, I think, will have an even better season. I think he'll score even more goals and beat last year's record, which is unbelievable in itself. Obviously, just won the Champions League as well, which was a major thing, like in terms of a mentality block, which they've just overcame as well. So I just think they're unstoppable at the moment. They're the team to beat. And they can have their off day, but it's very few and far between. So Manchester City as the champions again. So that is it for my 2023/24 Premier League table prediction for the season coming. Let me know yours in the comments, guys. It'd be interesting to see where you got every team and who your team is and where you've placed them. At some point this week as well, I'm planning to do my rankings for the home kits for the new season, so look out for that at some point coming in the next few days, hopefully, for you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know yours in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Catch you later.